This meeting is now called to order. I'd like to welcome everyone this evening. For roll call, everyone is in attendance, and we'll now take a moment of reflection and respect, please. Thank you. Confirmation of the agenda, please.
That council adopts the agenda for the meeting of March 2nd, 2022, as amended by A, adding correspondence received from the Elmer BIA on February the 28th, 2022, respecting the report CAO 2022 to the consent agenda as item 7.2, and B, approving the staff recommendation to withdraw the report CAO 2022 from the March 2nd, 2022 agenda, it being noted that staff will provide an updated report respecting this matter on the March 16th, 2022 regular virtual meeting of council.
Thank you. Someone to move and someone to second. Deputy Mayor Andrews and Councillor Chapman. Are there any questions or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Go ahead, Councillor Oslach.
Yes, Your Worship. I have a conflict of interest. March the 2nd, 2022, regular council meeting. I, Arthur J. Oslach, have a pecuniary interest in respect to meeting closed to the public, report 09-22. I therefore declare a disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof member of the board. Is that me? Okay. Therefore, not to take part in discussion of or vote on question in respect to the matter, and shall not attempt in this way, whether before, during, or after the meeting, to influence the voting on any such question.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Oslach. Are there any other declarations of pecuniary interest? Okay, seeing none, we'll move into delegations and public meetings. And we have a delegation this evening, and I'd like to welcome Sean Doyle, Program Manager, Family Central Apartments. Welcome, Sean, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for having me tonight. I'm going to start by giving you just a brief history of Family Central in their last 4 years, because I believe it illustrates the network we have set up and the support to support the people in the east portion of the county and beyond. So Family Central has been a part of the East Elgin community for 5 years now. I've been with them for 4. What started as one person in a restaurant booth for 16 hours a week has grown to a team of 8 staff, 6 part-time, 2 full-time, and we're growing. The initial idea was to run the 8 apartment buildings upstairs. And the program, I have a program involving life skills, financial literacy, coaching and counseling to improve people's mental health and quality of life. Within about a month and a half, maybe 2 months of being here, I began receiving so many calls for housing that I knew, we all knew, we simply couldn't just continue to hang up the phone and say the end is full. So it became pretty clear to me that with a shelter and some system navigation were going to be necessities, even in town the size of ours, to get people housed and to keep them there. So we now have those services in-house and are available to all who reach out to us in the community. So whether they're living here or not, it's available. We have a food security program and an emergency shelter available to people from November 1st until April. In the beginning of 2020, our housing list was at 91 people, and we have added 112 people since. I knew a lot of people were looking for somewhere affordable to live, and others were suffering to afford where they currently reside. Through support from the county, we were able to afford to hire someone to oversee a day program, and that was now going to include food. We spoke to our local grocery stores. We talked to Jim Collins at Harvest Hands. We talked to the East Elgin Community Assistance Program that I'm sure you're all familiar with, and anyone local we could to start, bringing in the food that we figured was going to be required to get this thing moving and put a day program like this into Elmer. So after that, the final and biggest piece of the puzzle that we were challenged with was seeing if we would have a community buy-in for all of the things we were doing, you know, with our upstairs apartment program and life skills and what we were trying to offer to the community. So we hired a woman named Carolyn Friesen, and with the help of Paul Talley, who helps run our shelter. We spoke to any and all people who would listen, and the buy-in from the community has been incredible. Up to date, we've had 3,438 volunteer hours donated to us. We also have had a successful fundraiser in the fall that not only brought in a nurse to our part-time staff to help with addictions, wound care, and et cetera, for people in the area with no doctor, but that again, I think illustrated Elmer wanted to help. We, and I mean, of course, I urge no one to underestimate the reach, influence, and resource that churches are in our small community. Our local Canadian Tire jumped on board. We had a lounge area for our shelter volunteers who are putting in from 7 p.m. at night until 7 a.m. They put in a couch for us. They painted the whole thing. They put in a big screen, smart TV, and everything else. It's really quite a wonderful spot to hide, I'm sure. So they've been incredible, the support that we've received. People come in almost daily to offer support with food from the dairy board, grocery cards, money, and I mean, just the amount of time, the buy-in has been incredible. So sorry, I just need to drink for one moment. So our food security program served its first meal in June and has now served 7,640 meals to 753 different people. Each one of those people are spoken with and asked how they can be helped. Although we have a well-balanced program, you would think, you know, with that large of a volume that we have to make referrals. We have to connect people back to their first service providers. We need to know where people came from, because oftentimes that's where they're going to get their most support. We know this, right? So we're not trying to tackle these things alone. We're very well connected. And it's very important to get people back into the communities where they have that kind of support. That's where they're safest, and everyone is. So our clients come from all kinds of walks of life, but maybe ODSP, Canadian Mental Health, and we work to get people re-engaged with the people that they went to for help first as well, and try to come alongside some of that programming and assist. So through providing the very basic necessities of life and qualified guidance, we're trying to walk with people, is what I'm saying. We ensure that people attend crucial appointments for employment, medical and otherwise, and make sure they understand the information and why it is important in their life. Our first day, sorry if I jump around a bit, you can ask a bunch at the end, but our first day of the food program saw 12 people arrive, and last week we averaged 52 meals a day. We see this as a trend that will continue to grow, and believe that is why programming and housing is paramount, but so is flexibility. So if you imagine our place is it's a three-story building, the top floor and the people that are up there have far different needs sometimes than the people that are coming to us for shelter at 7 p.m. at night. And those needs can be very different and varying from the person that walks through the door and says, I don't have any food, I need a hot meal and a cup of coffee. So our partnership, we developed a partnership with the West Elton Community Health Center, and it was done through Housing and Social Services with the county. And it was really a creative way of tying rural communities together, and I think it was really important. Tanya Dale works with both agencies on rural system navigation, and the same story applies in both areas. People are couch surfing, people are living rough or in deplorable conditions just to have a roof over their head and not knowing where to start or who they can trust. Tanya currently has 11 active clients here in the East, 14 in the West, and this partnership has helped 17 people in our area secure housing. Tanya connects people by working with them, with the county, to access funds necessary to assist people that are in rent arrears in desperate need of first and last, or assist other people with reasonable financial assistance to obtain or remain in their current housing. She, along with the other 7 people who work here at Family Central, are fierce advocates for people and for what's right. Often the funds available through the county programs do not cover the skyrocketing rental costs, so we contact the East Elton Community Assistance Program, ECAP, has been serving this community since 1969 as volunteers and have overseen initiatives like Christmas Care, the food bank, and they help people financially when those people absolutely don't think they have any other hope. All these years later, they're still doing it, and we're all working together to ensure it's being done responsibly and that people are receiving services and not just money. And that we know how often they are requesting financial assistance so that deeper problems can be addressed. If someone's coming back to the well 2, 3, 4 times in a year, we're not just handing out money. We know this and we understand that we need to make a larger intervention and find out what need, So, multiple churches in town make financial contributions. They participate in fundraising drives, and they have parishioners that volunteer their time to cook for and serve food to many people who otherwise would not eat that meal. Now, people might be tempted to ask me, how do you know that they wouldn't eat that meal? And questions along that line. And this, right now, I believe has to be my answer. As long as ODSP pays about a max of $1,100 a month, okay? You may get special dietary needs and some other things like that, but typically, most of the people that I see come through here and are able to share that with me will share that their max shelter combined with their needs works out to be about $1,100 a month. So how would anybody on that type of a fixed income ever even begin to possibly survive without a massive community buy-in? The amount of support you require from your community to get by, I don't think I need to explain that math to anybody here. That's Ontario Disability. And I mean, I'm not here flinging stones or anything else. I'm just here to talk about the reality of what I see from this lens just down the road. So I know recently the housing assessment that I attended, hosted by the Honorable Warden Mary French, we spoke about municipalities working more closely with organizations like ours, because we are in fact a good model to address the needs of people from rural places who have what most people thought for a long time was big city problems. And they're not. They are people problems, and they're everywhere. I know that we've received a great deal of expertise and support from the county, but financially, though, basically through CHIPPY funding, I'll be able to pay for one person. I'm paid for by a private family. And then other than that, we have to fundraise and fundraise and fundraise to get these positions filled and offer the kind of services that we do so that people can become connected to their community and that this problem doesn't continue to get worse. So we hold multiple meetings with people to support them in their journey to mental wellness daily. We serve 50 meals a day. We provide shelter throughout the coldest months of the year. The majority of our funding comes from the pockets of good people who live and pay their taxes here. People who put a bunch in a collection plate every Sunday would save just a bit for us. And people who raise their families here and are now on a fixed income and may be facing some difficult decisions when I'm sure inevitably their land taxes go up. And find out that a 1-bedroom apartment is now $1,500 a month. I know we could spend time talking about whose responsibility all of this is, but I'm sure, for sure, it's not the person I just spoke about, It's not the person who's the next vulnerable person in line potentially. So, and we need people on all levels discussing these things. I know that we can spend time talking about the like whose responsibility it is, but I think what I came here tonight to say is that we need your help. Although we've done a fine job developing relationships that have gotten the funding off the ground, imagine how much faster some of the things people need could get done if it was your voice as a council supporting us. We need to clearly identify what affordable housing is. And I understand that that's a St. Thomas thing, but if the housing assessment was correct, that we're supposed to start working and budgeting towards these things, can we start a conversation around what's affordable? Because this is already out of control and it's not going to be stopping anytime soon. Places as they empty are getting a paint job, throwing some carpet down, and all of a sudden it's a $1,400 rental. And I'm not here to say everybody in the world's a bad guy or anything else like that, but it's hard not to do. We're not developing the kind of house that people, or the kind of housing that people that need affordable housing are ever going to be able to step into. I mean, how are we going to look at that $1,100 a month and start a conversation around that? There was a study done a few years ago by the County of Elgin saying that a couple of adults would have to work making, I think, a minimum wage at that time was $16.25, and a couple of them to have a couple of kids and own their own property and stuff like that would need to work 40, 50 hours every week and budget extremely well to have their kids. I can't remember the study exactly, so I'm not going to quote it, but what I'm saying is we're asking people that it's taking everything everybody's got to get to where they can go. And once, people are in an extremely difficult position. No matter how you look at the math and everything else, it speaks for itself. The most vulnerable people that need help are getting left behind. That's what shelters are full of, right? Is people that need more help than they're able to get. So it always comes back to me, the $1,100 a month. I mean, there's a cap, and I'm not sure who needs to be talking about it and things like that. But based on that, you would have to think that affordable housing would be somewhere around the $300 range, wouldn't you? If that's the honesty, and if anybody there tonight can find me a $300 apartment, I'll tell you something right now. I'm the most impressed person you'll ever see. So I'd kind of what I'd like to know is if the rural housing assessment recommendations are the municipalities play a larger role, what is that? I mean, that's a relatively blanketed statement, and I know it is for you guys as well. That's not really defined, but how do we start the conversation? How do we end up putting up enough housing with programs attached to put people somewhere that's sustainable? Because otherwise people sometimes, if they're very, very hard to house, no matter how much everyone's trying, particularly in this point in time, and with the money that is going around, people are just going from, they're getting played ping pong with, and nobody's getting anywhere. And it's really frustrating for them, and it's very hard, and it doesn't help their mental health, and it doesn't help the position that they're in. I know that this is a really, really tough topic. I know this is probably why we shied away from this topic for as long as we have, because these numbers haven't matched for a long time, but now it's just so outrageously gone that, I mean, I just wanted to start somewhere. So Family Central started to help people in 8 different apartments get a firmer grasp on themselves and the world around them and get back on their feet. And I would say that by creating partnerships and coming up with new ways to find and serve vulnerable population, we've gone far beyond our initial intention. My privilege to serve alongside all of the people I come in contact with, staff and volunteer alike at Family Central, but we stretched ourselves to get there, and we worked real hard to give it all back to the community of people who need it. And that's my ask of you guys, is can you stretch yourselves? Start a conversation with St. Thomas, and what does that look like, and how can we provide you with the statistics, or can you come alongside us? Is there land available? Because I want to start building stuff. I want to start putting things in place, because this doesn't seem to look like, for me, when I have a long view of it, I don't think it gets better anytime soon. So I thank you so much for the opportunity. And just, if I could for a moment, just, the Honorable Mary French has been always kind enough to poke her at it and see how we're doing. And I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to speak to everyone tonight. And I'm happy to answer any questions I can. If I can't answer them, I'll find out answers and I'll run them right down the road to you if you like.
Okay, thank you very much, Sean. And we will ask council if they do have any questions or comments. So I'll open it up to council. Do you have anything you'd like to ask Sean? Councillor Ham, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. To Sean Doyle, I was just wondering, thank you for that very passionate, you can clearly tell that you are in the right line of work and what you are doing. So thank you for what you do and who you are. But my question is, would you be able to relay maybe some, like on a positive note, some success stories that have happened in the time that you've been a part of Family Central?
Yeah, well, yes, I can. We have people that have returned to work. You know, we have people that have faced some of the largest challenges. I mean, it's when I look from this, I mean, I'm talking to you about the doom and the gloom and everything else, but I'm telling you, when you get to honestly see somebody dig deep and work hard at their own life, it's incredible here. I think when we talked about the 17 people that have been housed out of the at one point 30 that were unhoused in the last 6 or so months, I believe that statistic is from. That tells me that we're doing a great job at finding people places. I know that we're working very hard with individuals to keep them in their places, and that's helping people develop new habits. I spent some time with a gentleman who that's become his new thing is making sure the landlord's happy by, I've got a new routine in my life. I clean things now and everything else. My house isn't in quite such jeopardy. Things like that. I mean, there's you got me on the spot really, because I do get emotional about it, but there's just a really ton of good people that try really hard when they get here, no matter what they're faced with. And we have a great number of success stories. Absolutely. I think it's a huge success that we are like, I mean, outside of the ability to help people return to work or improve their mental health or plug back into a community and feel supported. I mean, daily when you come in here in the morning, there's groups of people that are sitting together that are being social. You know, they're doing the best. You know, we kept everybody safe during COVID and everything else like that, and we'll continue to do so as we move forward. But people are getting a social aspect in their life. I think that's a huge success story. People are coming out, you know, they talked about how punishing this was going to be on people that are isolated and things like that. So I've seen people that came in here already desperate for contact and food and all those other things that are now regular people that feel cared for. I mean, I don't know how you make a better success story than things like that, you know? It's tough because I can't get into specifics. I can, but I mean, it's hard to without using names sometimes and things like that. But we've had multiple people, as I said, return to work, return to family. We've had people honestly change their lives, decide that they want to take a new path. They're going to battle their addiction. They're going to face it head on. They're going to engage with addiction services. They're going to accept our rides to those appointments. They're going to talk with us on the way back. They're going to meet with us 3 times a week and keep that support going. And they're going to access everything we can get them on their computer. And I mean, we're not an addictions place, but we've seen that. We've watched people do that. We see that in our community program, because I mean, we've got a list of all those people that can call us anytime they want, and the phone continues to ring off the hook. We have people stop in from Thunder Bay. I get calls from Toronto about this thing and stuff. Hey, like, we were invited to the housing assessment because I think rurally we've done a good job with this, and yeah. I don't know if that's enough, or if that was just a whole bunch of bragging, or if that answered your question in any way. But
Are there any other questions or comments for Sean? Councillor Oslach, go ahead.
Yes, Your Worship. Great work, Sean. I think the family restaurant is Central is doing a great job. I think I would recommend that staff look into it and maybe support something for your organization. And I know the homeless thing is really exponential in Ontario. And I feel greatly for that. And I think the town of Aylmer should be doing something to support you. You know, I really do, because this council, and I stand behind this council, and I don't know how council feels about the situation, but I do feel greatly to support you. And I think the town of Aylmer should support you.
Thank you very much.
Are there any further comments? The only thing I can say is you are doing awesome work, Sean, and you have got successes, like tons of them, because you're feeding people every day. Even that in itself is very important. And I do suggest to council to go down to the Family Central Apartments, stop in for a cup of coffee, and I think you're going to be impressed, and Sean will show you around. I do pop in quite often, and Sean and I are good friends, and I really do support you, Sean. And thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate you coming this evening.
Thank you all so much for the opportunity. Please enjoy the rest of your night.
Have a great evening. Thank you, Sean. Josh, could you read the resolution, please?
That council receives the delegation from Sean Doyle, Program Manager, Family Central Apartments, for information.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Charlton and Councillor Oslach, are there any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Next up is we're going to be commencing a committee of adjustment hearing. So could we have the resolution, please, for that?
That council recess at 7:26 p.m. to commence a committee of adjustment hearing to consider the application for minor variance A0322 respecting 62 Victoria Street North, Smith.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Deputy Mayor Andrews and Councillor Ham, are there any questions or concerns? All those in favor? And that's carried. The Committee of Adjustment of the Town of Aylmer is convened to consider application A03-22. Additional information relating to the applications is available for inspection between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. weekdays at Aylmer Town Hall. Signed written submission shall be accepted by the Secretary Treasurer prior to or during the hearing, and such submission shall be available for inspection by any interested party. In addition, if a party who is notified does not attend the hearing, the committee can proceed and the party is not entitled to any further notice of hearings. Submission or requests for notice can be sent to jbrick@town.aylmer.on.ca. A copy of the decision will be mailed to those persons who attend or are represented at the hearing and those who have filed a written request with the Secretary for notice of the committee's decision. The committee will receive input in the following order: presentation of the staff report by the Manager of Planning and Development, agent or applicant, the public, staff, and the clerk. Application A03-22 is made by Kurt Smith and Nicole Benoit Smith, owner of the property known municipally as 62 Victoria Street North in the town of Aylmer. The applicant is requesting a minor variance from the requirements of the town zoning bylaw number 57-99 as amended. The applicant is seeking relief from Section 7.3 zone requirements of the residential type 1B R1B zone within the zoning bylaw as it relates minimum lot area, minimum front yard depth, and lot coverage in order to fulfill a condition of severance approval, consent E2-22, and to increase the buildable area of the lot to be severed. Could the Manager of Planning and Development please provide their report on the application? Hi, Christy.
Good evening, Chair. Thank you. So the application for minor variance before the committee this evening is for the property at 62 Victoria Street North. This property received conditional approval for consent at the January 27th, 2022 meeting of the Land Division Committee. This council previously offered support in principle for the severance at the January 12th meeting of council. So just in case this all looks a little familiar. Included within the recommended conditions of the approval for the consent was the requirement for a minor variance. And this was generally required to permit the reduced lot areas that would be on the lot to be severed as well as the lot to be retained. Since we were accepting a minor variance application at the time, we determined that it would be appropriate to seek further relief from the zoning bylaw, particularly for that lot to be severed. So the applicant is also requesting that the front yard depth requirements, the setback between the future dwelling and the property line be reduced, as well as the overall lot coverage. And those two are related as a function of one another. So this application was circulated in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. Town departments and public authorities did not indicate any concerns or comments. At the time of writing the report, the town had not received any comments from the public. However, subsequent to the authoring of the report and providing it to the agenda, we have received one inquiry, which we've addressed and satisfied a neighboring landowner. And Mr. McWhorter, who will be presenting this evening, has indicated he is opposed to this application. So the variances were evaluated using the 4 tests under the Planning Act, and this is included in detail in the report. Based on my analysis, I'm satisfied that the requested variances are minor in nature, would facilitate appropriate use of the lands, and maintain the intent and official plan and zoning bylaws. The variances would facilitate residential infill in a manner that is generally consistent with the area and is not anticipated to result in adverse impacts to the existing community. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy. I'll refer back to you, Josh. Is the applicant or agent present? And if so, do they wish to speak to the application?
Through you, Madam Chair, the logon information for the meeting was provided to Mr. Ken McWhorter, who we understand to be a neighbor. And Mr. McWhorter, if you're in attendance, could you please state your address for the record of the clerk? Right, Chair French, I'm just going to double check with the deputy clerk to confirm whether or not we have Mr. McWhorter on the call. Oh.
Hello? Hello?
Good evening.
Yeah, this is Ken McWhorter. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, welcome, Ken.
Thank you. So yeah, this lot will be around the corner from where I live. And my objection is based on population density and congestion in the neighborhood. The other concern I have is that if the town of Aylmer continues to allow variances of this nature, then I think it's doing a disfavor to the community. And again, the population density and congestion of neighborhoods may become an issue down the road. There must be some best practices available for the land management people, and I'm not sure if this is considered to be a best practice or not. I know that building apartments or basically building up is a thing of the future, especially in bigger cities like Toronto. But jamming houses in smaller spaces, my opinion, is not a good idea. Then the other consideration is as you continue to add houses in areas that were designed with sewer systems and water mains set to accommodate the number of houses that are existing or the number of lots that are existing. Now you're putting more sewage into the sewer system. You're putting more strain on the water system to provide enough water, and so on and so forth. So I don't know if anyone's looked into that or not. So I think that's probably all I have to say, but I hope council will consider what I've said and not make it a habit to allow these types of variances and have houses being built on fairly small properties. So that's all I have to say, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Ken. Ken, would you like it if our planner could answer a bit of like some of the questions that you had? Would you like that this evening, or would you like her to follow up with you later by email?
Actually, I had a very nice conversation with the planner today,
Okay.
Christy, and she you know, she gave me a lot of good information, and I certainly appreciate that. But her information wasn't enough to sway my opinion. So.
Okay, Ken, well, thank you, because we want to make sure that you get the information you require. So don't hesitate to reach out to our planner if you do have other questions after this meeting.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ken. Josh, have you received any additional communications related to this application?
Through you, Madam Chair, no, we have not.
And I'll turn it back to you, Christy, if you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share with the committee.
Thank you, Chair. Through you. The recommendation before the committee this evening is for approval of the requested variances. I do hear what Mr. McWhirter is saying, and I think we've discussed it at length with this council previously. There is a need for intensification. There is a need to, make the most efficient use of our lands as possible, and I think we will continue to see these variance requests, particularly for infill developments. And it's not necessarily a function of poor planning or short-sightedness. We're using an antiquated zoning bylaw that hasn't been comprehensively updated in quite some time. So it's very much sets the stage for the development patterns of the 1990s. And as we know, we're in a housing crisis. We know we need more houses. We know we need a range of types and densities. So applications such as this, in my opinion, are sound land use planning and represent, potentially a gap in the community. We have subdivisions going on that present larger lots for bigger opportunities for larger homes. This lot is a little bit more niche. It's going to likely house, if final approval is granted, it's going to have a smaller house with a smaller footprint, likely at a very different price point than some of our other developments. So in my opinion, my recommendation for approval is maintained, but I would be happy to answer any questions that the committee may have this evening.
Okay, thank you, Christine. I think it's good for us to remember that we're following the provincial policy statements. So a lot of our guidelines are from the province. It's not like we just make them up ourselves. So I think the committee just needs to remember that. So I'm going to turn it over to the committee for a discussion. Are there any questions or comments concerning this? Okay, seeing none. Josh, I'll turn it back over to you then.
Certainly, Madam Chair, I'll read the resolution, and we'll just require a mover and a seconder. The resolution reads that Report Plan 0522, titled Planning Evaluation Report, Application for Minor Variance A0322, respecting 62 Victoria Street North, Smith, be received by the Committee of Adjustment for information, and that the Committee of Adjustment conducts a virtual public hearing for application for minor variance file A0322 on Wednesday, March 2nd, 2022, to receive comments from the public. That application for minor variance A0322, seeking relief from section 7.3 zone requirements for the residential type 1B zone as follows. 1, minimum lot area of 365 meters squared for the lot to be severed, and a minimum lot area of 450 meters squared for the lot to be retained. 2, minimum front yard depth of 5.5 meters or 18 feet for the lot to be severed. And 3, maximum lot coverage of 40% for the lot to be severed be approved. And that the Committee of Adjustment direct administration to provide confirmation to the Elgin County Land Division Committee indicating fulfillment of the application E222 condition number 1, as noted on the notice of decision dated January 27th, 2022, upon conclusion of the appeal period associated with this application.
Thank you. Someone to move and someone to second. Member Ham and Member Sherry Andrews. So with no further questions or comments, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And we need a resolution to adjourn.
That the Committee of Adjustment hearing is adjourned at 7:40 PM.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Okay, Member Chapman and Member Charlton. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. And now to reconvene council.
That the council meeting be reconvened at 7:40 PM.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Ham and Councillor Chapman, are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Minutes to approve the resolution, please.
That council approves the following minutes. Regular virtual meeting of council held on February the 16th, 2022.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Chapman and Councillor Charlton, are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Minutes to receive.
That council receives the following minutes. Minutes of the East Elgin Community Complex Board of Management held on February the 9th, 2022, and minutes of Elgin County Council held on January the 11th, January 31st, and February the 1st, 2022.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Oslach and Councillor Ham, are there any questions or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. The next item up is the consent agenda.
That item 7.1 and 7.2, it being noted that 7.2 was added via the addendum of the March 2nd, 2022 consent agenda, be received for information with actions to be taken as noted.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Barber and Councillor Chapman, are there any questions or concerns with the consent agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. We'll move into action items. And the first one is the endorsement of operational budget for the East Elgin Community Complex.
That the Council of the Town of Elmer receive the East Elgin Community Complex Board letter regarding the EECC 2022 operational budget, and that the Council of the Town of Elmer approves the East Elgin Community Complex 2022 operational budget in the amount of $595,034, and further that Council directs staff to provide notice of this decision to the EECC Administrator.
Okay, thank you. Someone to move and someone to second. Deputy Mayor Andrews and Councillor Charlton. Are there any questions or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. The next item up is request for endorsement of capital budget for the EECC.
That the Council of the Town of Elmer receive the EECC Board letter regarding the EECC 2022 capital budget, and that the Council of the Town of Elmer approves the East Elgin Community Complex 2022 capital budget in the amount of $377,000, and further that Council directs staff to provide notice of this decision to the EECC Administrator.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Ham and Councillor Charlton, are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. The next item is Report Clerk 0822.
That Report Clerk 0822 respecting the 2022 election, pre-election accessibility plan update be received as information.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Deputy Mayor Andrews and Councillor Oslach. Josh, do you have any further comments to this report?
Certainly, through you, Your Worship, this is really a housekeeping report in advance of the 2022 municipal election. Section 12.2 of the Municipal Elections Act requires the clerk to prepare a pre-election accessibility report, and the goal of this report is to ensure that electoral services are accessible to all electors and candidates. The intention of the report is to identify and reduce or eliminate barriers and to create a positive voting experience for all of our electors. This is an ongoing task leading up to, during, and after an election, with this plan really being a living document. We're constantly editing it, trying to ensure that it's optimal. And the plan that's before council this evening is based on the 2018 municipal election plan. So staff support making this plan publicly available as soon as possible, just to allow for any feedback from the community, and with the utmost goal of ensuring that our election is accessible as possible. And with that, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Josh. Are there any questions for Josh? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. The next report is Clerk 06-22.
Right. That report, Clerk 06-22, respecting the 2022 election, lame duck restricted acts of council, preliminary considerations in 2022 council calendar options be received as information, and that council directs the clerk to prepare the necessary bylaw prior to nomination day, August 19th, 2022, delegating authority to the chief administrative officer from August 19th, 2022 to November 16th, 2022 to be the financial signing authority for expenditures outside of the current budget exceeding $50,000, and or for the disposition of any real or personal property of the municipality which has value exceeding $50,000 at the time of disposal, be the authority to hire or remove any officer from and to employment with the town of Elmer, and that the authority to hire as delegated in section 2B be restricted to not exceed the overall previously allotted complement number of staff positions, excluding those that are 100% provincially funded. C, to have discretion to bind the corporation for projects and new funding opportunities with the provincial and or federal governments in instances where the contribution of other levels of government totals 66% or greater, with a cap of $100,000 for the municipal contribution. And finally, D, that the chief administrative officer shall submit to council an informational report containing details relevant to the exercise of all delegated authority for that position under the bylaw. And then we've got 3, and that council delegate authority to the director of operations to pre-allocate 2023 funds up to an amount equal to 50% of the total council approved 2022 capital budget towards the materials and projects previously scheduled or anticipated in the 2023 capital plan, and that the town clerk prepare the necessary bylaw prior to nomination day, delegating to the town clerk or designate from August 19th to 2022 to November 16th, 2022 to review and consideration of designation of events as being of municipal significance for Alcohol and Gaming Commission purposes, and review and consideration of issuance of letters of support for events seeking special occasion permits. And finally, that council approves changes to the 2022 council meeting calendar as recommended in the report 06-22.
Okay, thank you, Josh. Someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Chapman and Councillor Barber. And do you have any further updates to this? There's quite a bit to discuss, I guess. So I'll turn it back over to you, Josh.
Certainly, through your worship, I'll work on keeping this brief. As you said, there is a fair bit of substance to the report, but this is something that many of our members of council that were sitting in the last term will be familiar with. It's a fairly standard practice at this time of year. We're really working on being proactive. So in short, the purpose of this report is to seek council direction to prepare that necessary delegation of authority bylaw in advance of nomination day, and also to provide a recommendation for amendment of the approved council calendar at the conclusion of the 2018 to 2022 term of council. So under section 275 of the Municipal Act, a council is prohibited from performing certain actions in a municipal election year when it's determined that there will be a material change in its membership during the next term of office. So this is commonly referred to as the Restricted Acts Clause or the Lame Duck Council. And more specifically, section 275(1) of the Municipal Act provides that where 3/4 of the members of the outgoing council of the municipality will not be returning, the following authorities of council cease on nomination day. So council will recognize many of these in the resolution. So it's the appointment and removal of office of any officer of the municipality, hiring or dismissal of any employee of the municipality, disposition of any real or personal property of the municipality which has value exceeding $50,000 at the time of disposal, and making any expenditure of incurring any other liability which exceeds $50,000. So just to elaborate a little bit further, the Restricted Acts Clause may be triggered depending on the outcome of 2 key dates in the upcoming municipal election, with those dates being nomination day and final voting day. So if it's apparent that the incoming council will be comprised of less than 3/4, so 75% of its current membership, the council is required to refrain from those acts that I previously mentioned. And then further on in section 275, it notes that the authority of a municipality can be delegated to a person or body prior to nomination day. So again, this is really just some foreshadowing for council for what's to come. We're seeking direction to prepare this bylaw for purposes of ensuring business continuity in a lame duck scenario. And as well, I'll just focus a little bit more on the 2022 council calendar. So as council's aware, election day is October 24th, 2022. And we are recommending some minor changes to our traditional council format. Notably, so we're suggesting that the October 5th, October 19th, and November 2nd regular meetings of council be canceled, with a regular meeting being added, or sorry, I apologize. So for November 16th, 2022, the regular meeting would be changed to the inaugural meeting of council for the 2022 to 2026 term. And really the rationale for this proposed change with meetings that are in or around the election period during that time. The town doesn't hire additional election staff, so we will be relying heavily on legislative services staff to run the voter information center and be assisting members of the community throughout that election period, and really just ensuring the conduct of an election that reflects principles of the Municipal Elections Act. So based on this proposed schedule, the final council meeting of this current term would be on September the 21st, 2022, with November the 14th, 2022 officially being the final day of the current term of council. And finally, I'll note that in accordance with section 5.4A of the Town of Aylmer Procedure Bylaw, with the majority petition of council or at the call of the chair, we would be able to hold a special meeting at any time for a specific reason. So, we always want to remain developer friendly. For instance, if there was a file that came through that required council consideration, we would be able to call a special meeting and ensure that we're not leaving anything on the table or that we're not delaying anything in that respect. All it would take is the call of the chair or a majority petition of members of council. And with that, I'll take a few breaths and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Josh. Are there any questions from council? Councillor Charlton, go ahead.
Through you, Madam Chair. So do we have any capital projects that are going to be affected by this lame duck council, or are we making provisions for those projects well in advance?
Through you, Mayor French, and to Councillor Charlton, I know that the CAO is currently working with the Treasurer and the Director of Operations to really expedite the budgeting process. I know that Andy would be able to elaborate further on some of the steps that he's taken, but he's quite familiar with this, having been a clerk in a past life. And we really are working on ensuring that council is able to review some of those documents in advance, just to ensure a smooth transition and avoid any delays or disruptions during that lame duck period. And a part of delegating that authority to the Director of Operations and giving the Director of Operations the ability to expend those budgeted funds, again, has to do with ensuring that we are ensuring business continuity and not causing any undue delays.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. The next item up is the report clerk 10-22.
That report clerk 1022 respecting the renovated council chambers, furniture layout and design options be received as information, and further that council approves the board style table design as outlined in the report clerk 1022.
Someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Charlton and Councillor Barber. I guess I'll be turning this back over to you again, Josh.
Certainly, through you, your worship, and two members of council. In short, the purpose of this report is to seek council direction for approval of a board style table in the newly renovated council chambers. With the awarded project works well underway, I'd like to report to council that we still are very much on schedule. If anything, I dare say we are perhaps a little bit ahead of schedule. Staff are in the process of finalizing the specific council chambers furniture layout. So by confirming the future council chambers furniture layout at this point in the project, staff can provide accurate direction to contractors on site, just in terms of cutting access points in the floor before it's finished. And this will allow for the installation of conduit for cabling. So that's where we'd be running HDMI, audio, video, Ethernet, et cetera. So this allows staff to begin the process of securing any additional furniture that would be complementary to the table design in the new chambers. Throughout our kind of preliminary research and what's led to this recommendation, staff have presented 2 furniture layout options. And really the key considerations were sort of the new location, the size of the room that we're working with, and also best practices from similarly sized municipalities. So staff in this case are recommending continuation with a board style table design. Council's familiar with this. This is what the town has benefited from in the past. And really the major benefit from this design option has to do with our ability to adequately space out members at the elongated table. A large part of the reason that we were successful in receiving some provincial funding to facilitate this council chambers design was to make our council chambers more accessible and also to allow for adequate social distancing. And this design suits the spatial profile of the renovated council chambers well. And in the attached design concept, one slight modification would be staff are recommending that staff members be positioned at the opposite head of the table. I'll just click the diagram. So with staff members being positioned at the opposite side of the head of the table, members of council wouldn't need to turn their heads to look at them during the meeting, or staff members wouldn't be sitting behind members of council. I'll just zoom this in a little bit. So moving on, one other benefit to this design that's being recommended is, we benefit from having Eastlink being able to broadcast these meetings, and this design would allow Eastlink to capture the entire council chambers in one frame, which would simplify the work for the volunteers that we rely on and hopefully expand our candidate pool. Further, one other benefit, kind of final benefit I'll touch on to the board style table is that it's dynamic in its use. So with having a half horseshoe design, we found that might not be as applicable to sort of other uses. We really want the council chambers to be a community hub, a place that's welcoming and accessible. And this board style table would be far more functional for committee meetings, the voter information center, et cetera. And finally, we currently own a board style table that would fit really well in this council chambers. It's approximately 2 feet longer than the current table that council is accustomed to, and a similar width, which would allow for that extra spacing. And if council's supportive of the board style table design, we intend to repurpose that existing table and base the additional furniture considerations off its design. And staff are of the opinion that represents approximately a $25,000 savings at this time based on some informal quotes that we've received.
Okay, thank you, Josh. Are there any questions or comments? Councillor Oslach, go ahead.
Yes, Your Worship, to Josh. The present boardroom table, we can use that in the closed session room? Maybe?
Yes, through you, Madam Chair, and to Councillor Oslach, that is the plan. Council will see sort of in the, the diagram is not properly oriented, but in sort of the top of the diagram, that does represent a scaled version of the existing council table. And we're intending to repurpose that as an ante-room. So when council would conclude the public meeting, they would stand up and walk to the ante-room, which would be a separate area that would also serve as a dual purpose as an additional meeting room outside of council proceedings with the separate access outside.
Yeah, thank you, Josh.
Are there any further questions or comments concerning this report? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And the next item up is Report Plan 06-22.
That report plan 06-22 entitled Planning Report, Development Agreement Update, 60 White Street, Double J Fabrication Incorporated, be received by council for information, and that council authorized the mayor and clerk to sign the development agreement as outlined in the appended bylaw pertaining to the lands known municipally as 60 White Street.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Deputy Mayor Andrews and Councillor Barber. And I'll turn this over to you, Christy, if you have any further information to share with council.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. This matter that's before council this evening pertains to 60 White Street. It's generally an administrative or a technical process that we're going through. What we're recommending to do is that council authorize the mayor and clerk to enter into what I'm calling an updated development agreement. So there currently is a development agreement on these lands. It is quite dated and it's without drawings. So right now, Double J Fabrication is looking to expand their facility. One of the conditions of being issued a building permit is to satisfy applicable law, site plan control being one of those matters. So when we went to review the file, it's quite challenging to review without drawings. So what we've done is we've really just went through an amended agreement. We've updated who the agreement is with. It will now be with Double J Fabrication instead of the original property owner. We've updated some securities and then we've appended that drawing. So really, it's just a kind of a housekeeping matter and will enable Double J Fabrication to expand their facility and continue to grow. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Christy. Are there any questions for Christy? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. The next item up is new business and matters of urgency. Bylaws, 3 readings.
That council approves and gives 3 readings to the bylaw 0922, being a bylaw to authorize the signing of a development agreement between Double J Fabrication Incorporated and the Corporation of the Town of Elmer for the development of lands located at 60 White Street in the Town of Elmer.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Chapman and Councillor Ham, are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Are there any inquiries by members? Councillor Charlton, go ahead.
Through you, Your Worship, I had another inquiry about Spruce Street since the last meeting, and people are kind of anxious to see what can be done on Spruce Street as far as sidewalks go. And I just wanted staff to keep that in the forefront because people are inquiring about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Charlton. Andy, did you have anything? Have you been doing any other research on that particular item since we last talked about it?
Certainly, Rob has produced a report that we're going to finalize and will likely bring forward. I think the issue certainly goes a bit beyond just Spruce, though. It's that we really need to start making kind of an inventory of where we need to do those types of sidewalks and start putting money away in our capital budget. But certainly that'll be outlined in more detail, I think, in the report. Rob, I don't know if you have anything further to add to that.
No, nothing further.
Okay, thank you for that update, and we'll look forward to seeing the report. Are there any further inquiries by members? Okay. Seeing none. Statements and committee reports. Councillor Oslach, go ahead.
Yes, Your Worship. I was visiting City Town Hall in St. Thomas last Friday, and there was a freedom demonstration out front of Town Hall, and I was really disgusted. One of the freedom rallies members draped himself in the poppy flag. We only fly the poppy flag during Remembrance Day for our fallen veterans who sacrificed their life for freedom. The freedom we enjoy today. That was disgusting, and it was immoral, and it was shameful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Oslach. Are there any further statements or committee reports this evening? Seeing none. There is no report of the mayor. Notice of motion? There is none. Josh, could you please read the resolution for meeting closed to the public?
That council move into a meeting closed to the public at 8:04 p.m. to discuss the following matters. Director of Corporate and Legislative Services and Chief Administrative Officer Report Clerk 0922, proposed disposition of land pursuant to Section 239(2)C of the Municipal Act as amended as the subject matter pertains to a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board.
Okay, thank you, Josh. Someone to move and someone to second. Deputy Mayor Andrews and Councillor Chapman. Are there any questions or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's